let's start off this first Shark Nation Radio Backlash episode of the week, again, with Mike Closer, who's going to do a summary of the news, and maybe I'll interject here and there, since last Thursday when we did our last recording. We did Friday, we did Backlash, Rewind. And I'm curious where he's going to go with this, because the biggest stories were on Thursday, and it seems like they've gotten less and less big. So with that in mind, let's hear what Mike Closer has to say. Thanks for joining me, Mike.
Thank you for having me. And yes, a lot of news packed into a few short days. And yes, some of that news that you just mentioned seems to fade away a little bit. But if we need to start somewhere, we certainly can start with a few things. Well, obviously, the speech that he gave that was Reagan-esque, of course, in Poland. The comments that are being made from people like Charles Krauthammer and others calling it Reagan-esque is nice to hear, especially with where they sat many months ago. What did you think about the speech? Were you taken by it as well, or have some of the same feelings?
I was impressed by it. I know better than to really pronounce where a speech stands in terms of history within 4 days of when it is given. I don't know if people thought the Gettysburg Address was that big a deal when it was given. Let's wait and see. And it relates to what I said during the presidential debates, for example. I often said to myself, remember in the first debate, people were talking about how important things were. And I said, it's going to be interesting to see what history remembers from the debates. And like, for example, one year, it was, even though Bush Quayle won, it was the Lloyd Bentsen moment, John Kennedy. And this year it turned out to be because you'd be in jail. And we just didn't know that at the time. So that's my long-winded answer to your question. But I thought it was a great
speech. Thank you. It was. I think the world took it in the most pleasant way as representing all of what each country should be stand for, their freedom and sovereignty of their nation. So it came across well internationally. And as you said, the Thursday news seems to fade away a bit, but some other things happened since. A couple things. One, on my show, I've been talking about where the heck has Reince Priebus been? And as
Mike, before you get into that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where people can see your show. I know we always do it at the end, but let's put in another pitch for your show.
Thank you. Appreciate that. On Periscope, at The Best Closer, on Twitter and or Facebook. Again, all at The Best Closer. Thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm. So where was it? Oh, Reince Priebus. So yeah, Reince Priebus makes an appearance this weekend. He should be the most vocal person on behalf of President Trump. And as you've seen, he's been super silent, and he didn't speak very eloquently, but he certainly did respect and represent all that's going well with the administration. But I got to tell you, something must be wrong there to not have him speaking on behalf of the president.
What do you speculate? I mean, it's probably just speculation.
I speculate that meaning that he comes from the RNC administration, along with a couple other people that probably were given to President Trump as a gift with purchase, meaning you won the presidency, but we need you to rock on with these people on your team. Right. You may like them, but I don't know how much you're going to get out of them. I just want them around as eyes and ears. And I got to tell you, it's probably taken away from the luster and sheen of how good it could be.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a surprise, the way you describe it. I mean, it was a surprise when he was chosen. But, if it keeps the peace to some extent, I suppose it's working. And my guess is that Priebus is the kind of guy who works better behind the scenes anyhow, that there's a lot going on with him we just don't know about. I think that's probably true of a lot of people, actually. Who knows?
I'd like to think that, but you have to agree his position is supposed to be the one that you see before you see President Trump or hear from. And again, we haven't heard much. So I probably think Newt Gingrich would have been better.
Yeah, maybe. Suppose, though. I mean, Trump is throwing out the old rules. So I don't know. I mean, there's so many conventions that have been destroyed by Trump that who knows? It may be playing a role. I don't know.
Well, to continue on a couple other things, the word honor was used. President Trump said it was an honor to meet with President Putin, and the left went crazy with the word honor. Right. They don't want to hear anything associated that's positive with a meeting, of course, and it was a good meeting. I don't care about the handshake, how good it was, or anything else. I'm sure they had a great laugh on things we didn't see, and that probably made it more of a human meeting versus a upper-level chat between two world leaders, But it was nice to see them get together. It was really good optics for everyone to see.
Can you imagine the same optics and words if it had been Barack Obama there? and how presidential and how elegant and statesmanlike it would have been. I mean, just it's funny to even think about that.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up because, President Trump runs and gets a Marine One's hat and gives it back to him, cap, for the helicopter, Marine One. And in retrospect, it showed Barack Obama giving a speech with someone holding an umbrella over his head, where President Trump didn't quite need an umbrella. So it's a definitely, quite the separation of the type of people that they are and how they're respected by the military and vice versa, how they're respected back. So that was a nice, I guess, optics for us all to enjoy, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the actions, it's the expressions on their face. Barack Obama looked so smug when this underling was holding the umbrella for him. It was like Hillary Clinton getting hors d'oeuvres from Marines.
Well said. Smug was the word I didn't even find this morning. Thank you for that. And also, people cover up news like this. ISIS is down to, they've been decimated, 60 to 65% eradicated. And there's a key reason why, and I mentioned it last week, you might recall, that we're now allowed to bomb the mosque. And because of that and having Mattis on board, it's making a huge difference.
No kidding. I hadn't heard about that. And that's even during Ramadan, which at least during Bill Clinton's administration was so holy. I remember that from the Clinton administration.
Very true.
That's
very true.
Interesting. What was it? Just a change in policy? Yeah, you can bomb mosques, or was there anything leading up to it? I mean, I just haven't heard.
Obama had an internal executive order and a stand-down order to all generals that no mosques were to be bombed, no matter what. So the mosque had become a safe haven for all of the tribal leaders in Syria, and that's where they all did all their business. They printed money in mosques. They have ID printing machine in mosques. And they have to go after an outside of the Geneva Convention sometimes of them and their families to hit them where it would hurt most. And it is working. It's working tremendously.
There is nothing new with the use of a mosque. My question is, and this is a theological, not even really judgmental about Islam. If I can digress, maybe you know the answer. Jews happen to go to synagogues, but they can really pray anywhere there's a Torah. Obviously, you can't do it next to a bathroom. Catholics have to go to church to get communion. There's no requirement on a minyan, having 10 men or anything there, but they get communion, and it's sort of arbitrary, unlike Judaism, what the reading will be in various Christian churches. I'm just curious theologically, and if you don't know, that's fine, but maybe someone will respond with this. What compels Muslims to have to go to a mosque? Is it that they have to pray with a group? Is it that there's a certain reading that happens to happen? I mean, I don't know what forces Protestants to have to go to church, actually. It's just
great question.
I don't
have the answer. I don't have the answer, but those I know that are super religious on any front all tell me that you can pray to your God from any time, any place, anywhere, depending on your religion. What sets them apart in their area is that we can't build temples. We cannot build churches in any of their countries. But in our country, we have 3,300 plus mosques. And before 9/11, we only had a couple hundred. So there's a big issue I have with that for everybody.
Well,
either all represented or none.
Well, to some extent, I mean, there are synagogues in Morocco. I mean, there are more moderate Muslim regimes. I mean, that's the reality. In Turkey, Morocco, there are still synagogues. I mean, the Jews have never been a threat the way Christians have in those countries. And it's still not a good place to be Jewish, but it's a little bit different. I'm just curious, not even judging everything else about the religion, just why they have to go to a mosque. And there probably is an answer. I just don't know. I don't know why Christians have to go to church. I mean, non-Catholic Christians have to go to church. I'm
sure you'll tackle that. I'm sure you'll have a caller on that one. I'm sure that'll be tackled.
I'll probably forget about it right after this, but I wanted to get it out now.
Where else? Oh, something else happened. President Trump spoke with President Pena Nieto and, of course, Trudeau, and warned them both about NAFTA. And he said it's A, being renegotiated, or B, being stopped. And they did have that meeting overseas, and it is going to happen. And Pena Nieto's face seemed to be okay.
Remind people where he is,
because he has
president,
no choice.
Where he's the leader of Mexico?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, Mexican leader, Pena Nieto.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
This is something interesting real quick. A record increase in oil production due to President Trump's erasing of Obama regulations and releasing of the government land. I don't know if you know, but Obama did a major land grab the last 6 months and took a bunch of land from the people. President Trump signed an executive order secretly 2 weeks ago, never reported, giving the land back And since then, there's going to be more oil, including Alaska. I don't know if you know, Texas found the largest oil reserve in American history that no one seems to talk about in the last 6 months.
Is it West Texas like it usually is, or somewhere else?
I don't have the city. I apologize. I do not, but I know it's now, they say, it's not due to fracking, but the largest ever discovered with the new radar or sonar, So I think it's sonar that they use.
No kidding.
So that's exciting. And
I may talk about that with Chad Olson later in the show.
Please.
He's in South Dakota. Great. He's going to be a great guest. I've met him. I've never had him on the show, but he does know a lot about the oil industry, which makes sense being in the Dakotas, even if it's South Dakota.
Yeah,
not
huge renaissance
oil.
there going on.
It's more about North Dakota, but he's close enough.
We should tackle, before I finish up, the de Blasio thing. The de Blasio, spends money to go to the riots because there certainly aren't protests, and embarrasses himself in the city of New York.
What? I mean, what was he thinking other than he just doesn't care at this point? I mean, I presume he wants to get reelected.
Well, here's what's interesting. 3+ million people in New York City. Almost 1 million people voted in the last election for him, and 71% voted for him, and there's a lot of liberals in downtown, but they didn't get out the vote. That's one of the issues they have. So he actually is doing himself a service by pleading to his base. Right,
but I'm just curious how it's going to work. I mean, there's a lot of people who have a negative reaction. He doesn't have a strong background there. I don't know. I mean, wasn't the black guy, and it is kind of racial in New York, fairly moderate, and they have a few of them like ready to go. It just seems like he's setting it up for a more moderate minority candidate to win, potentially in a primary next time. That's the way I read it. And just there wasn't so little attention paid to it last time, in large part because of Anthony Weiner. Who presumably will not be running this time, that he won by stealth. But, I mean, if Weiner hadn't been there, I wish I could remember his name. I mean, just it seemed like the moderate black guy was the best candidate. I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, it's interesting that now with President Trump's stamp of approval of what he's doing economically speaking and or with Wall Street all around, I think you're going to see a bit of a difference, but they truly need 2/3 of the city to vote to have any chance of not having him as mayor. And that's a big undertaking in New York City. I don't know why, but it is. And hopefully that can change. And last great bit of news was the jobs report, 222,000, and it was supposed to be around 170 to 176. So continues to go up on a weekly, monthly basis.
And we're, of course, following this Donald J. Trump Jr. Non-story today, but we're recording this around 9 a.m., so who knows what will develop by the time this first airs. Any thoughts on that? Or
another,
wait and see?
What do they call it, another nothing burger?
Yeah, nothing burger. I saw the whack-a-mole video that's going around of CNN and so many people trying, and then Trump just hits them with symbols every now and then. But okay, well, any final thoughts? If not, just give people the way to find you.
Again, a shout out to Gorka. If you don't know Sebastian Gorka, says it best about what's going on internationally. So get a flavor from Sebastian Gorka, follow him, and then you can follow me at The Best Closer on Facebook, Twitter, and on Periscope. I'm on 6 a.m. to 7:30 every weekday. So thanks for having me on.
Eastern time. I just want to mention
Eastern time. That's right, Eastern time.
International show here, so we don't want to be too biased toward the Eastern time zone, which I haven't left.
I appreciate that. No harm intended to all coasts.
I can't believe I haven't even switched time zones. It's now like close to 3 months that I've even since I left the East. Might be more than that. Wow, after all I traveled. Okay, Mike, great having you on.